People keep asking. Okay, so sorry, I missed that first part of it. That's too bad. Okay, so this is why we're studying. So let's start in the book of Deuteronomy. Just a recap, because I just started recording for those people who want to listen to the recording. We're studying because there's so much confusion in the world about reincarnation, polytheism, what happens after you die. People in the world right now, they just live because they have no hope, thinking that they're going to die anyway, so you might as well not follow God and do whatever. So we want to study the truth, because there is life after we die. And there's so many truths into this, and hopefully this will give people hope, especially those that lost loved ones, right? You guys have lost loved ones, right? I've lost a lot of loved ones, right? And so this should give us hope that we're, it's not the end. There's something else in this world. So you have nothing. If people don't want to study, there's nothing to lose, right? It's more to gain, and they could study it, and if they don't believe it, fine, but just give it a chance, because that will give people hope. So we're going to start in Deuteronomy. We're going to do some detective work. So somebody read Deuteronomy 34. You guys got Deuteronomy 34, verse 1 to 6. So, whoa, good man. All right, go ahead.
Deuteronomy 34, 1 to 4.
1 to 6. So just read it slowly and try to make sure that you guys understand. You can read it with him, right? Because this is important.
Then Moses went up from the plains of Moab to Mount Nebo, to the top of Pisgah. Why is it so hard to read? Which is across from Jericho. The Lord showed him all the land of Gilead, as far as Dan, on the Naphtali, in the land of Ephraim and Manasseh, all the land of Judah, as far as the western sea, the south, the plains of Valley of Jericho, the city of palm trees, as far as Zoar. Then the Lord said to him, "This is the land of which I swore to give Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, saying, I will give it to your descendants. I have caused you to see it with your eyes. We shall not cross over there. So Moses, the servant of the Lord, died there in the land of Moab, according to the word of the Lord. And he buried him in the valley in the land of Moab, opposite Beth Peor. But no one knows his grave to this day."
Interesting.
Oh, very hard words.
Hard words, right? Okay, so the first part we're talking, okay, so let me go off track just a little bit. This is something that I think that this is interesting for you guys. Did you know when it said from the first 4 verses, it talked about all those places, right?
Yeah.
The hard to pronounce, right? So from Gilead to Dan, Naphtali to Ephraim to Manasseh, all the tribes are all the land of Judah. And it said, the Lord said unto him, "This is the land which I swear to Abraham." That means Moses saw all that land. It's impossible to be able to visually see all that. So God was giving him a vision to show him all the land. Isn't that interesting, right? Aha, we didn't know that. So that's one thing, right? He's saying to all this land. So God is there with him. Who's with him? Who else is with him?
Isaac.
No, this is just showing him the land of Abraham and Isaac unto Jacob, right? And said, I'm going to give this land, right, to Israel. So who is there with Moses besides God? So God and Moses are talking, right? God's there with Moses, showing him a vision of all the land, right? Right before he dies, and says, this is what we're giving to, this is a promised land, but you can't go over, right? So who else is with him? Yeah, we're doing the detective work. Who else is with Moses? and God at the top of the mountain.
Holy Spirit.
Holy Spirit, yeah, I guess
So
so.
that's a
Hey,
person.
A person.
This is the
Yep.
chapter 34.
This is the first record of a resurrection, right? About somebody.
Joshua.
Nope, he wasn't there.
Jacob.
No one. No
Oh,
one was
really?
there. It was just
Wow.
Moses and God. Okay, this is important. You guys need to know this, right? And then verse 6, what did verse 6 say?
What? Verse 6 said, and he buried him in a valley in the land
Okay,
of
so who
Moab."
buried him? Who buried Moses?
God.
Yes. See, a little bit of detective work. Another interesting thing, you know, Moses wrote most of Deuteronomy except this last chapter because he died, right? So it's most likely Joshua that wrote this last chapter, right? And he's saying here that God buried him. He was the only one there, right? Into this valley, right? But no one knows of his sepulcher or his grave to this day, right? So
Oh, if you dig the whole place, you probably know.
what's that?
If you dig the whole place, you probably know.
Yeah, exactly, right? So this is really interesting. So
Wait, at the valley of Moab, right?
Yep.
Where is it in this world?
in this world, that's a good question. I don't know. It's somewhere in, so
Someone,
Joy, do you know where Moab is in today's?
if we dig the place up now,
It's probably somewhere in the middle of the east or something.
It's in the Middle East somewhere, right? So
Yeah, I don't specifically know it. It's Middle East.
yeah, it's in the Middle East somewhere, right? There is still Moab, I believe, right? If you look inside, there's Bible maps that you have in there, so you could take a look. So, and it shows you where Moses went, and it shows you, so we could look at the map later on.
I'll go dig the-
Now, you can go dig there, but you're not gonna find it. You won't find it.
Yes.
You could dig all you want, but you're not gonna find it. Then, so we're gonna get there. So we're gonna talk about the detective
Why?
work, right? So why? So one question for you guys. I think we studied this before, right? Why didn't God allow Moses to go across to all this beautiful land that he worked so hard for? He said, you're not going across, but you're gonna die here. You remember?
I have no clue.
That's okay. This is why we're here. Do you remember, Nelson?
Just make a guess. It was about time.
It was what?
No. Moses made a mistake.
Very good, right? So, and there's a couple things about that as well too that I read, but I'm not going to get into this as a whole study. But yeah, besides him making a mistake, because you think, wow, that's really harsh for, you know, God, he just made one mistake, right? When he hit the rock, right? So there has some representation with Jesus and things like that. I don't want to get deep into that. But at the same time, if you think about it, they're going to start a new journey on the other side. There's going to be, right? Yeah, go ahead.
Could you ask me?
Yeah.
Moses hit a rock. What about us?
What?
What about us?
What about us?
Yeah.
What do you mean, what about us?
Like who made more mistakes than him?
Very good. That's a really good question, right? That's why it seems really harsh in
Yeah,
that
like-
sense, right?
It was a
What
rock.
was the question?
So he's saying, you know, Moses did make a mistake. He hit a rock, right? But Shua is saying, what about us? We make more mistakes than that, which is a really good question, right? So
Okay.
there's a couple of different things if you want to think about it. Moses was the leader of all the Israelites at that point. He was like the beacon. He was the example, right? He was leading Israel, trying to be a spiritual leader, trying to do all this stuff, right? And then, yeah, there was other things that Moses did as well too. But for Moses to die there without going over, you got to think of it this way. It's not so much of a punishment, but it was also mercy. God knew, and Joy, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, right? So God knew from my studies that for him at his age, he had to lead a lot of things once they crossed over the Jordan. There was so many things that had to happen. There was war, they had to do all these things. It was his time. God's like, you know what? You've done all this. You're going to stay here. I'm showing you the land, but it's time that you give it over to Joshua. And Joshua, he was full. You know how faithful Joshua is, right? It's time to let go and give it to him.
Joshua.
Yeah, Joshua. You don't remember Joshua?
Yeah, it's Joshua.
Oh yeah, I have
Joshua is
Oh,
He led, going to the Jordan. Remember, he
Ah.
marched around the city. He sent spies over, right?
I talked something about that in another Tuesday thing. That's good.
Oh, it's gonna happen? Okay, I'm waiting for that. Okay. So there was a combination of, yeah, you know what? Moses did sin, and there's consequences to sin, but at the same time, God has mercy. And he's saying, you know what, Moses, how old was he? Do you remember?
It was about time.
100
and 9.
Close.
And 22.
Close. 120. 120.
Oh,
Could you imagine? Wouldn't you be tired too?
pretty
Just
young.
like,
He's pretty young.
I know. So if I was 100, I'm like, you know, just leave me here on the mountain. I know what's going to be coming, right? There's going to be wars, and I'm spent. He spent how long inside the desert and everything else, right? And I'm pretty sure that he was happy to let go of the reins and say, you know what? So we're going to keep talking about that.
Also, just to add to Moses real quick,
Yes.
because he smote that rock twice and he said, I shall give you water, or shall I give you water? Ellen White writes that he took the glory that was due to God to himself. And this was a big mistake. So due to this, God had him suffer a consequence, and that was that you're not going into Canaan.
Exactly.
So we also see God's truth and mercy here, despite the fact that he teaches us through this that when we make a mistake, there's always a consequence, and that consequence will not be removed. That is something we'll have to carry, to outlive, to deal with. But despite that, God did not abandon Moses. Just because he made a mistake, he did not give up on Moses. There was no, I hate you eternally now. I mean, Moses did not know that after he dies, he was going to go to heaven. That wasn't told him. But God in his love and mercy gave him something better than Canaan. He understood that Moses was old and the people weighed him down. He was weary and he made a mistake. So it's like God didn't necessarily hold it against him. But as an example, Moses had to suffer that consequence. And when we read it through Ellen White, Moses was devastated that he doesn't get to go to Canaan. His whole life was bound up in this land of bountiful living that he was promised, and now he doesn't get it. I mean, if Jesus right then and there would have told him, but don't worry, you'll come to heaven, he would have been like, okay, no worries, no problem. But he wasn't told that. So through this, we have hope that even if we make a mistake and we suffer because of it, because we have to, that's the law. God does not abandon you. He's with you in that suffering, and there's a way out, and he forgives you, and you get to move on and learn and grow with Christ all the same. So a mistake and suffering doesn't mean that God abandons you. That's what Satan wants you to think. Just wanted to add that real quick.
Exactly. Thank you for adding that. So does that make sense? So even though he did that and we make worse mistakes, it seems like, I've made worse mistakes. I've left. I know I blasphemed. I've done everything under the sun, right? But God's forgiving. Look at David.
Oh no! I
Look
just
at
learned about it.
David. Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Right? Did you know that he broke every single commandment?
Yeah.
Every single one he broke in that one act, right? If you're thinking, well, how about the Sabbath? Well, he probably worshiped just by mouth, but not with his heart, right? So there's all these, so from lying, stealing, covetous, everything he broke in that thing. And yet God forgave him. But don't forget, it was due to true repentance, meaning he was so sorry, right? We talk about repentance all the time. When we do something bad, it's just not, Lord, forgive me for doing this, amen. That's not repentance, right? Repentance is feeling bad for your sin, so bad that you never want to do it again as much as you can. We're going to fall, we're going to make the same mistakes, right? But God's going to give you opportunities and train you to go do it over again, just like a test. It's a retest. Do it again until you get 100%, right? So God is merciful that way, and he will never forsake you, like Zoe said, right? So why is this important? So this was a first resurrection. This was in the Bible that you know of, was somebody died and then they got resurrected. This is the first one, right? So in the New Testament, how do we know that he was resurrected? Do you know? Yeah, how do you know that Moses was resurrected? Was he resurrected?
I agree. The only thing I just thought of just now was when Jesus went to the mountain of fear.
A transfiguration.
Yeah.
Ah, very good.
I was going to say that.
So
No, you
that's,
weren't.
so that's a clue, right? So what happened between the transfiguration and the mountain? Do you know what happened? What was going on? All right. So let's read the transfigure. Oh no, we're gonna run out of time. So in Luke 9, it's the transfiguration, right? So I'm gonna quickly depart from him. Peter said to Jesus, Master, it's good for us. Oh, this is let's see. As he prayed, the fashion of his countenance was altered, and his raiment or his clothes was white and glistening. And behold, there talked with him 2 men, which was Moses and Elias, what we were just talking to, right? So this is like advanced sneak peek at the return of Jesus as well. The sneak peek is like, you know. So he's glorified in this white raiment and everything else, right? He's glorified. People, you know, if you saw them, you just say, oh my goodness, that you haven't. It's like seeing, you know, somebody standing there and all of a sudden they become bright and everything else. You're just like, oh my goodness, what's going on here, right? But he was glorified, right? And then this also represents 2 groups. This is interesting. So, do you know what Moses stood for and Elias stood for? Okay, let's go back. I'm skipping. Elijah. Do you know who Elijah was?
He was a prophet.
Okay. What happened to him?
He was translated.
He was translated. Did he die? Okay.
Translated. Oh,
Yeah,
the
he was
character
a,
like.
Chariots of fire. Good. Right?
Oh,
Okay. So you got Elijah
yeah.
and Moses. So those 2 represented 2 different things. Elijah represented those who are going to be awake at the second coming, and that will be taken. Moses represents those who are asleep in Christ. That will be raised. So anyways, that was kind of interesting.
About my good boy Enoch.
Yeah, I know, Enoch, right? You're a good boy, Enoch. He's there too. But these are the 2 that were represented. And those were the 2 that was at the Mount of Transfiguration. Enoch was probably somewhere else doing his thing, right? So do you think that once he went to heaven, like Zoe was saying, he looked back and he was like, I really wanted to go? What do you think he thought when Moses, you know, woke up and he's in heaven? Do you think he regretted it? Do you think he was upset?
yeah, at least he went to heaven.
He went to heaven, right? That was the promised land, because God promised, I'm going to take you to the promised land. He did. He never broke his promise. God took Moses to the promise, our promised land, right? So he took him. So you could just imagine how he felt, right? If you were Moses, how would you feel if you woke up and you were in heaven?
This is the dream.
Is this a dream, right? What would your feeling be? Like, what would you be so happy about?
Just I won't be happy, but I'll be confused.
You'll be confused. Okay, good. And then, yeah, it's like, where am I, right? And then you see this beautiful, perfect environment, right? And guess who's standing right beside you?
My dad.
We're talking Moses, right? So, but yeah, right? Jesus is standing right beside you. And that in itself should put joy in your heart to say, your Savior is right beside you.
So I'm feeling is when I like arrive there, if I arrive there, and like Jesus is standing beside it, this song is gonna come out doors. Jesus,
Jesus,
it's gonna come out door and just say, yeah, it's like
So yeah, when you say, so I hope I know we all want to say if, and I want to say if because we don't know. But what we do know is if you repent of your sins, he's faithful and you can be guaranteed that you're going to be going to heaven, right? But we just have to work on it every day. That's why Paul says, I die daily, because we sin every single day, right? So we have to keep on top of it. And you have to self-examine yourself every night and say, what did I do today that didn't make my Lord smile today, right? So every night you got to think, what did I do that I didn't make my Lord smile? Your angels is beside you, right? Taking note. Does your angel go, oh. See, my angel has a red mark here because every time I make a mistake, right? So, every night you got to think of what did I do, right? And then just think about your day like, oh man, I did this. I shouldn't have done that. I'm so sorry. And you got to have that sorrow because, right? So imagine if, you had a best friend, right? And every time they hurt you, you're just like, why? But they're your best friend, you love your friend, right? And the disappointment, and think of that with Jesus, that every time we do something, he's just like, okay, let's try it again. And I give you that test so we can try it again, right? But anyways, so you're gonna have the Lord right beside you, your guardian angels. He can say, I was with you all this time since you were born to protect you and do what God tells me to do for you, right? And then so it's going to be amazing. So Moses up there, he's going to see the glory and he's not going to regret anything of what happened, right? And what amazing thing was Moses accepted, he didn't fight God when he was on top of the mountain. When God said you're going to die up there, he goes, okay, let's go. He didn't fight him, right? He had that relationship. He trusted God because he knew there was a bigger picture. He knew there was others. So the same thing with us. You've got to know that there's a bigger picture than our small little lives. Like our little problems that we think are big problems are nothing compared to what's going on in the world right now. Right now, it seems like okay, there's wars and everything else. If God takes away all the cloud and we see the spiritual world, you're going to freak out. You're going to say, oh my goodness, you're going to see angels fighting for you, right? The good angels and the bad angels, and they're fighting for your soul. All these places, like I'm not sure you guys heard my sermon one time, but I had a picture of it where, you walk around the street and you're looking at them and you could just imagine angels fighting over that one soul, right? And we have the choice, right? And so this is why it's so important for us to be able to choose to make the right decisions and choose to help others see the true light like we are today. Okay, let's look at this other story. So we talked about Moses. So there was another resurrection, and then we're still talking about Elijah. And there's a miracle that happens, right? So turn your Bibles to 1 Kings chapter 17, 1 Kings chapter 17. 8 to 16. So okay, so Nozomi, if you want to read so why don't you read 8 to 11 and show you could read 12 to 18.
Kings what?
1 Kings 17.
Dollar number.
17. 8 to 16. So Nozomi, Nozomi, read 8 to 12. 8 to 12 and show read 13 to 16.
Then the Lord said to Elijah, go and live in the village of Zarephath,
near the city of Sidon.
Sidon.
Sidon. I have instructed a widow there to feed you. So he went to Zarephath. As he arrived at the gates of the village, he saw a widow gathering sticks, and he asked her, "Would you please bring me a little water in a cup?" As she was going to get it, he called to her, "Bring me a bite of bread too." But she said, "I swear by the Lord your God that I don't have a single piece of bread in the house, and I have only a handful of flour left in the jar, and a little cooking oil in the bottom of the jug. I was just gathering a few sticks to cook this last meal, and then my son and I will die."
Okay, let's stop there. What's happening?
Too poor. They only have food for his son.
Just for his son, right? There's
Yeah.
some more like this. I'm trying to teach you how to study the Bible.
No bread.
No bread, no nothing, right?
Mhm.
Did you notice in verse 9? Verse 9. So this is why it's important to read slowly, right? What does it say in verse 9?
Arise, go to Zarephath.
Go and live
Okay, keep going.
in the village near the city of Sidon.
Okay,
I have instructed a widow there to feed you.
did you notice that? God instructed a widow. He told the widow, right? Instructed a widow woman there to sustain him. God's already speaking to this woman. I didn't catch that, did you? This is why it's important to study slowly, right? So here they are, they're poor, they have nothing. She only has a little bit of food left. They're gathering sticks because they want to make the last fire to be able to make the last piece of bread. And then she gets instructions from God. Listen, Elijah's going to be coming,
Oh boy, Elijah.
right? And you're gonna sustain them. You're gonna help him. What would you think? And another thing, did you know that this person, this widow, was outside of Israel? So it's not even an Israelite, right? It's outside of that. It's a woman in Zarephath.
She's a trip.
Yeah, right. So, and God's speaking to this. Do you know how many people are having problems at that time? Do you know the timing of what's going on here?
There was a drought.
There was a drought, right? Why? Ah, excellent, right? Ahab.
Yeah, it was Ahab. It's starting with A at the end.
Yes. So Ahab, the wicked king. So Elijah goes and then, says that there's going to be no more rain, right? And then Elijah goes to one river and then it dries up and then that's where God says, go here. No, that's a different one, right? And then so he instructs him to go over here and then she's going to give him, take care of him, right? So a lot of other people were having problems, but God goes to this one woman who's not even in Israel. Isn't that strange? So all these people must have been starving and dying of thirst and everything else, but he still goes to this one woman. Okay, keep reading, 13 to 16.
And Elijah said to her, "Do not fear, go and do as I say, as you have said, but make me a small cake from its source and bring it to me. And afterward, make some for yourself and your son. For thus say the Lord God of Israel, the bin of flour shall not be used up, nor shall the jar of oil run out, until the day the Lord sends rain on the earth." So she went away and did according to the word of Elijah. And she and he and her household ate for many days. The bin of flour that was not used up, nor did the jar of oil run out, according to the word of the Lord which he spoke by Elijah.
Okay, excellent. So what do you learn about this story? What can you learn about this story?
Faith.
Faith, excellent,
God
right?
provides.
God provides.
What happened to all the ravens?
No, not the ravens on this one. Right? She obeys. She obeys God, and when she obeys God, he blesses, right? She heard him, said, Elijah's coming, you take care of him. And she says, imagine if you had your only son, right? You had your only boy. Things must have happened. She was a widow. That means her husband died, right? They're just getting ready to die, right? And then somebody comes and says, "Give me your last piece of food." That's big. Wouldn't you want to say, "No, I want to give it to my son. You know, I won't even eat. I'll give it to my son. Please give it to my son," right? But she believes and she obeys everything God says. So here, take everything, right? And then she makes it for him. So that was a woman in faith that did that. So something happens to that boy, right? So keep going. That's 1 Kings 17, 17 to 24. So let's see, there's a lot of reading. So those are, why don't you go ahead? 1 Kings 17, 17 to 24.
Sometime later, the woman's son became sick. He grew worse and worse, and finally he died. Then she said to Elijah, "O man of God, what have you done to me? Have you come here to point out my sins and kill my son?" He said to 17 to what?
21.
But Elijah replied, "Give me your son." And he took the child's body from her arms, carried him up the stairs to the room where he was staying, and laid the body on his bed. Then Elijah cried out to the Lord, "O Lord, my God, why have you brought tragedy to this widow who had opened her home to me, causing her son to die?" And he stretched himself out over the child 3 times and cried out to the Lord, "O Lord, my God, please let this child's life return."
Sorry, keep going to 24.
The Lord heard Elijah's prayer, and the life of the child returned, and he revived. Then Elijah brought him down from the upper room and gave him to his mother. "Look," he said, "your son is alive." Then the woman told Elijah, "Now I know for sure that you are a man of God, and that the Lord truly speaks through you."
Okay. So what was the woman's first response when her son died?
She thought Elijah came to point out her sins and then eventually leading her son to die. So
Yeah.
she
Excellent. The first thing she says is, "I've sinned," right? And she's pointed out. So she wasn't perfect, right? So she had good faith to be able to give the last morsel of meal, but that doesn't mean that she was blaming Elijah, saying, "You know what? Because of my sins, you made this happen." Like she's starting to blame and everything. So she wasn't perfect, right? We're not perfect. None of us are perfect, but she's struggling. Like she lost the last thing that she had left was her son, right? So she was really struggling, but that God recognized maybe a little doubt left in her. So this is the part that I love. So God does all this stuff. He sees all this faith in this woman. He knew that she had faith. That's why he called on her, right? And then he sees this little doubt. So he maybe causes this to happen. We don't know, right? And then so he's like confirming to say, "I got your back," right? So even though she's saying, "Why, it's because of my sins that, allow this to happen," and things like this, right? And then so you could imagine, he said Elijah had to take the child from her, right? So she was holding on to him. She just didn't want to let go of him. And Elijah's like, give me the boy, right? So you could tell the love that she had for her son. She didn't want to let it go. She was struggling and everything else, right? So why do you think God allowed this child to die? Any thoughts? I mentioned a little bit about it, but why do you think he allowed it? See, we're still doing some detective work.
we did.
Why did he allow this boy to die? Seems just so weird, eh? God just saved them, gave them as much. Could you imagine the boy too? Like every morning he woke up and the oil's full, and then The flower pot is full every single morning, right? And he must have thought, wow, this is amazing. So, this miracle, must have increased his faith as well too, but God allowed him to die. So again, going back, possibly maybe because his mother, was kind of not fully in faith, or she didn't have the right understanding, or whatever it was, he may have needed this additional assurance to know that God's taking care of her and brought him back to life. That's just the thought. It's not written in the Bible anywhere, right? So just a lesson for this is God will use people in different ways, maybe death, right? So when I lost my parents and my brother, right? Believe it or not, it actually increased my faith because certain things happened. The timing was good. It wouldn't have been better if it was any other time. But when I look back at it, I could see that God's timing is perfect, even on the timing. And you have to have faith to know that the reason why God allowed it, it may have been worse later on, right? So you have to have that faith. You've got to gain that faith. You've got to grow that faith to know that God is always going to be good. So, okay, the next, yeah.
As a thought about the why, as to why the son was laid to rest at the time when Elijah was there. If we can infer, or we can refer to the story back to Lazarus, we know that Christ, in the same passages that we read, we saw that Christ also said that this sickness is not unto death, but this is for the glory of God. So in that way, we can see that every time that God resurrects someone, it is for his glory, to strengthen the faith of people who can see that the miracle of the resurrection from the dead. So as to why, that is why, because that Christ or God wants to show his glory, that this is possible for him. And again, the response of that widow, he said, in this I know that you are a prophet, came from God. So that is a confirmation that her faith was strengthened because of this. So it is not, it is a trial for sure. It is something that she had to go through in order to strengthen her faith.
Amen. Thank you for adding that. Do you guys get it? That was good. So everything that God does for these resurrection is to the glory of God. You'll see in the other resurrections the same thing, right? Jesus said the same thing when we're going to look into Lazarus as well too, right? It was everything is to his glory, right? And so that's a lesson for us, that everything we do should be to his glory. Our school, when we talk to people, our actions, everything has to glorify God. When we eat breakfast, remember I said, you eat because you want to work for God. You want to be healthy for him. Your body is your, the home of the Holy Spirit, right? So you want to make sure that you're healthy so you could serve God. Everything is to the glory of God. And when you do that, everything's going to fall into place, and you'll see a change. I just had that discussion with Jeff this week. And God is answering prayers, and I had to explain to him about when we start putting God first and doing everything to the glory of God, you're going to see your life change. You're going to see different things. You're going to see miracles. You're going to see so many things, works of God that, you're just going to go, wow, I never expected this, right? And I'm saying that because I'm seeing it myself, right? And you've got to put everything into his hands. Everything is to his glory. Okay, so the story is the widow of Nain, still with Elijah. Sorry. Do you know who Elijah's servant was, or his disciple was?
Successor.
Elijah, but with the
Yes,
Elisha.
Elisha, right? So Elisha does another resurrection, right? The Shunammite woman, 2 Kings 4, 8-17. So a lot of people get these stories mixed up. They think it's one and the same, but they're different, right? So we have Elijah, right? But now in Zarephath, but now in Nain, there's another widow. And again, he goes outside of Israel and goes here, right? What does that tell you if God is helping these people outside of Israel?
He does not care for Israel.
He does not care for Israel. Well, at that time, there was a lot of idolatry and there was a lot of things in Israel, right? There was a lot of things happening at that time. Remember King Ahab and, all that stuff happening, right? So he goes outside and helps people outside of Israel, right? So it's not just that you go to church and we're Seventh-day Adventists, that he's always gonna, you have to live your life. It's not about being, okay, so I gotta say this carefully. It's not about so much about religion per se. If you don't have Christ in your heart, it means nothing, right? That's what Paul said. If you don't have, he goes through in 1 Corinthians 13, if you give to the poor, if you don't have love, if you don't have this, it means nothing, right? So the same thing, it's most important to have that relationship with Christ, because once you have that relationship with Christ, everything is going to fall naturally into place, right? Oh my God, many people come in. Oh, that's Josephn's kids.
Yes, kids.
Yes, he has 3 kids. Okay, and they're grown up. Oh my goodness. They're all grown up. Okay, so let's read a little bit. Do we have time to read?
Yeah. We have like 90 minutes.
Okay, so 2 Kings. We're going to jump to 2 Kings 4. I want to read this because people get mixed up all the time in the stories. 4. We're going to read 8 to 17. So
Yes, 8 to 17.
yeah, so let's split it. So Nozomi, you read 8 to 12, and Sho read 13 to 17.
One day, Elisha went to the town of Shunem. A wealthy woman lived
Wait.
there.
2 Kings.
Yes, kids.
You're there?
4.
4.
Oh,
4.
You're going to read from 13 to 17, but Nozomi's going to read 8 to 12.
One day, Elisha went to the town of Shunem. A wealthy woman lived there, and she urged him to come to her home for a meal. After that, whenever he passed that way, he would stop there for something to eat. She said to her husband, "I am sure this man who stops in from time to time is a holy man of God. Let's build a small room for him on the roof and furnish it with a bed, a table, a chair, and a lamp. Then he will have a place to stay whenever he comes by." One day Elisha returned to Shunem, and he went to this upper room to rest. He said to his servant Gehazi,
Gehazi. Yeah.
"Tell the woman from Shunem I want to speak to her." When she appeared, Elisha said to Gehazi, "To her, we appreciate the kind concern you have shown us. What can we do for you? Can we put in a good word for you to the king or to the commander of the army?" "No," she replied. "My family takes good care of me."
14 to what?
17.
There, Elisha asked Gehazi,
Gehazi.
what can we do for her? Gehazi replied, "She doesn't have a son, and her husband is an old man. Call her back again." Elisha told him. When the woman returned, Elisha said to her as she stood in the doorway, "Next year at this time, you'll be holding a son in your arms." "No, my lord," she cried. "Oh, man of God, don't deceive me and get my hopes up with that." But sure enough, the woman soon became pregnant. And at that time, the following year, she had a son. She said Elisha had said, not Elijah.
Elijah. So okay, so summarize the story. What you guys just read. I want to make sure you guys understand what's happening.
What?
Summarize the story. What's happening?
Elisha, she stopped at this house. It was like there was a couple. One was an old man and one was a woman.
Yeah.
And Elisha stopped from time to time to meet this family, not family, I guess. This couple.
Yep.
And the woman was like, this man must be a holy man of God. He must be a man after his heart or something. And so the woman made a room for him and furnished it and had like a okay. And he Elisha appreciated, so she called the woman and she said, "What do you want?" And Gehazi said, "She just had this son." So Elisha is like, "Okay, so next year you'll be holding a son in your arms." And she said, "Don't get my hopes up."
Yeah, she did, right? Does that remind you of the story?
Sarah,
Yeah, right? Abraham and
laughed.
Sarah, she laughed, right? Yeah,
She
right,
weeped.
right? Excellent.
she
So describe this woman from what you've just read or what you summarized. What do you think she's like?
she's not old.
She's not old, maybe no. It doesn't say your age. Anything else about her? Any characteristics about her that you learned from this? Come on, detectives.
I'm letting show the
Nah.
Okay, so think of it this way. You know, Elisha keeps coming all the time. So she goes, come on, we got to build him up. The hospitality. Talk about the kindness in her to say, you know what, he comes, yeah, let's build a room for him. You know, the poor guy's been traveling all the time. He comes once in a while. Let's furnish it and just make it nice for him, right?
It's very Japanese.
Yes, it's very Japanese of her. That's funny. Okay, so she's a good woman. She's humble in doing good work, right? And then a promise of God is given to her, and then tragedy strikes. Keep reading, 18 to 20.
We got you.
Okay, go ahead.
One day when her child was old, he went out to help his father, who was working with the harvesters. Suddenly he cried out, my head hurts. His father said to one of his men, carry him home to his mother.
One more,
Ah?
20.
So the servant took him home, and his mother held him on her lap. But around noon he died.
Okay. How old was he, do you think?
He was older.
He was older.
He was over.
Yeah, how maybe was a young lad, right?
Yeah, he was a young lad because he said, my head hurts, my head hurts.
You could be a little kid and could say, my head hurts, right?
He won't repeat
Well, you never know, right? I was thinking of it this way. The mother let him go out into the fields, meaning that he wasn't a toddler, he wasn't a baby, right? So he was
was a
probably
young
in his
lad.
teens, maybe 8, 9, 10, doesn't say the age, right?
Adolescence.
So she spent quite a number of years with him, right? So she's attached to him, right? So it's just like, let's say your age. So it's like your mom loves you guys, right? And so attached, right? And then all of a sudden, you know, she hears, my head hurts, and then dies. It's like, oh my goodness,
Too much work.
too much work, right? So what happens next? Keep reading, 21 to 28.
Yeah.
Okay.
What?
21 to 28.
She carried him up and laid him on the bed of the man of God, then shut the door and left him there. She sent a message to her husband, send one of the servants and a donkey so that I can hurry to the man of God and come right back. Why go today, he asked. It is neither a new moon festival nor a Sabbath. But she said it will be all right. So she saddled the donkey and said to the servant, hurry, don't slow down unless I tell you to. As she approached the man of God at Mount Carmel, Elisha saw her in the distance. He said to Gehazi, look, the woman from Shunem is coming. Run out to meet her and ask her, is everything all right with you, your husband and your child? Yes, the woman told Gehazi, everything is fine. But when she came to the man of God at the mountain, she fell to the ground before him and caught hold of his feet. Gehazi began to push her away, but the man of God said, leave her alone. She's deeply troubled, but the Lord has not told me what it is. And she said, did I ask you for a son, my Lord? And didn't I say, don't see me and get my hopes up?
There's a lot in here, right? Isn't this pretty cool? So, any comparison with the other widow? You see any comparison?
Well, the widow already had a son.
Yep. One already had a son,
This woman had a husband,
had a husband.
but she had a son.
She never asked for.
She
Right.
never asked
She never asked for
what
this.
she wanted.
She wanted one, right? And then after the son died, who did the first woman blame?
But the first woman,
Yeah.
She indirectly blamed Elijah and also blamed herself. For
Yeah.
his
What happened with this woman?
It looked like Elisha like gave him the son just to take away later on.
Later
Like,
on?
well, not to take away by Elisha, but like took away by
It doesn't say that.
So
here,
she
though.
kind of.
Well, it kind of,
Well-
but yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah.
So I guess she directly blamed Elisha.
For giving the son,
Yeah.
not for killing the son,
Yeah.
right? So that, didn't I say doubt, right? Kind of thing, but, right? So, but it's interesting. You see the couple, right? She tells the husband, get me a donkey and a servant. She doesn't even tell her husband what's happening, right? And then she just runs and she knows exactly where to go, right? He says, don't slow down until I tell you. I know exactly where to go. And what happens? Gehazi, the servant, is first there. What does she tell him?
Everything was all right.
Everything is well. How could she say that? What do you think? Why did she say everything is well? And not. Why
She
could
just
she
wanted
say-
to directly say to Elisha, I guess. That's my only guess. I don't know why. That's bad.
Well, maybe, right? So she wants to get directly to Elisha. That's what you guys said, which is true, right?
Elisha? That's what I said.
Elisha,
Exactly.
right?
Elisha or
She wanted to go to Elisha, right?
that's a man name. Oh, what?
Right? It took a lot of faith because she knew after he died that Elisha could do something. For her to hurry up and go, the boy's dead, right? But she's just like, give me a donkey. That's a lot of faith to know, you know what? I'm not giving up because I know he's a man of God. I know Elisha could do something, right? So she goes, maybe, check this out, maybe she heard about the other widow, right, with Elijah, that Elijah brought the other boy to life, right? So I'm saying connection, right? She may have
That's
heard
more.
about the other boy that got resurrected, we don't know, but she didn't give up, she just went. She went to she bypassed Gehazi, his servant, and went directly, right? And then, so then she also laid the boy in Elisha's bed. So this is why we're thinking maybe she heard about the other boy because Elijah brought him to his bed. So maybe she thought the same thing and brought to the boy to Elisha's bed and lay him on the bed. So there's all these little things. So when you study the Bible, you can't just read it. You got to dissect, you got to read it, say, why did he do that? Why did she do that? What does this have to do with Jesus? What does this have to do with what we're studying about? Once you start asking all those questions like a detective, the whole Bible comes alive and you start making those connections. You saw the diagram I showed you about all the connections from the Bible, from all the verses everywhere. It's a connection. The whole Bible is connected, right? And to be able to understand it, you got to read slowly, right? So how did Elisha respond? Are we running out of time? So the difference between Elisha and Gehazi. So let's read second. What time is it? I Okay, we're running out of time. Okay, so I'm gonna read quickly. Elisha, this is in 2 Kings 4, 29 to 37. He tells Gehazi to take his staff and put it on the boy, right? Nothing happens. So Elisha goes and he does his thing, right? And then he prays and prays, like, right? And then brings him back to life. Why didn't Gehazi, when Elisha put his rod on the boy, why did the boy come to life? Any thoughts?
The same thing that happened with Peter or something.
What was that?
When he tried to heal someone here in the New Testament, he kind of failed.
Kind of failed. And why was that? Was the other disciples? I don't think it was Peter. It was a bunch of his disciples that went and tried to take a demon out of the the boy, and they couldn't do it. And then Jesus said, "Away!" And why can't we do it? Right? Prayer and fasting. But Gehazi, do you know a little bit about Gehazi? Have you heard of him?
His name.
His name? Gehazi. He's in another story.
Oh, he is?
Do you remember the story of Naaman? He had leprosy, and he was told to go into the River Jordan and bathe,
Ah.
right? And then this was Elisha and Gehazi. And then Naaman comes back, and he's a powerful person, right, in the army, right? And then so he comes back with all these clothes and everything else to give to Elisha because he was healed. And Elisha, so Gehazi goes to the door. Like he says, send him away. He doesn't accept gifts. It wasn't him, it was God. So Elisha gave God the glory, right? But Gehazi, after they left, he went after Naaman and said, oh, Elisha changed his mind, give me the gifts. That was Gehazi. So Gehazi, knowing his personality and his heart wasn't with God, right? So if he actually brought the boy to life, he would have taken the credit probably for his own benefit, right? Say, look what I did, right? And he wants money from other people. God knows. God will not allow miracles like that to happen from people like that, right? So nothing happened when Gehazi did that. It was his pride, his selfishness, right? That it didn't matter what Gehazi did. So then Elijah had to go and resurrect. So that was the third resurrection. So I know we're running out of time, and we're talking about resurrection. Going to the New Testament, there was other miracles. Do you know when Jesus raised other people? Do you know who? Do you remember who he raised?
Other than Lazarus?
Other than Lazarus? It was Jairus' daughter, right? So Jairus, so here's the thing. When Jairus, his daughter, died, he ran to Jesus and basically he said, my daughter's dead. And it wasn't that far, right? So it wasn't like it was days and weeks like the daughter died, right? And Jesus said, no, she's sleeping. So there's some controversy that came out because the Pharisees and Sadducees were watching, right? And all of the people that wanted to trick or confront Jesus, right? That he was a fake was like, oh, she was never dead. Look, she's still alive. And they mocked him, right? When he said that she was sleeping. So because they were saying, oh, it's just a little bit, so somebody made a mistake, so she was still alive. So, okay, fine, right? And then there's another one. What was the next one? Cyrus's daughter. And then the next one was, I know I'm going quickly through it. There was a procession. There was another story, widow of Nain. So there was a funeral procession, so a boy died.
Yeah.
And there was a widow, same thing, another widow in the New Testament, right? They had a funeral, and then Jesus came and saw these mourners, like, and so the funeral means that he probably just died recently, right? And then he goes, and then he says he's sleeping, and he raises him from the dead, right? Again, they're saying, maybe there was a mistake or something, right? And then, but it's impacted everyone. Now we get to Lazarus. How long was he dead?
Oh, 3 days. 4 days, actually.
4 days, right?
Yes.
And then how do we know that he was dead? How do we know he was dead, not like the others, like for a few hours or something? How do we know? Like somebody didn't trick, somebody wasn't doing a trick to make Jesus look good or something. How do we know he's dead?
He was in the grave.
And
He kind of stank.
he stank. He was decomposing, right? I know that's pretty gross, right? He was decomposing, right? He says, don't move away the stone because he stinketh, right? He stinketh, right? He stinketh, right? So we go back to the very beginning, to the memory verse, right? And that's when Jesus said, it said, I am the resurrection and the life, right? One who believes in me, even if he dies, he'll live. And everyone who lives and believes in me will never die forever, right? So I know I'm out of time. So I'm just trying to summarize everything. So from all these lessons, and what could you learn from this? So if somebody's asked you, if somebody just lost somebody who died, right? They lost somebody who they loved, right? What comfort can you give them? If one of your buddies lost somebody close, their parents or sister, brother, and they're heartbroken, what can you tell them? Anything? What do you think?
So, oh my! I think I think you've been pretty silent in this.
I like being
You like being silent? What could you say to someone?
I think you should answer because I'm just gonna answer that.
You know what I mean? When you say that, you get to see the person again.
Yeah, there's hope, right? And say, Jesus conquered death. He overcame death. It's a fact. It's not a myth. It's not a story. It's a fact. There are witnesses, right? And as long as you believe, right? We don't know the person or the cause of death or what their relationship was. We trust God, and God is fair, right? And all we have to hope, we just have to do our part to make sure that we're going to see them in the future as well. Okay, so we're good. Anyways, let's finish with prayer. Right. Dearest gracious loving Father in heaven, thank you again for this amazing lesson about the resurrection. This gives us so much hope, Lord. There's so much death and pain that's going around in the world. Please help us to cling to your promises. Help us to continually obey, not in obedience of what we have to do, but because we love you. Help us to be able to share this message to others. And we thank you for being with us today. In Jesus' name, amen. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Joy.
Thanks, guys.
Zoli, we will talk to you.
Just a question. I was reading your announcement about the Bible study at 3:30.
Yeah.
Is Sister Dorcas is that move? Sister Dorcas is not.
Yeah, she couldn't get her phone going.
Oh, I see. I was just curious. Okay.
Yeah, so I got a note from Senna, and she said she can't get her phone going, and so she won't be able.
I see.
And I just moved it to 3:30. We're going to try a couple of different things, and try something out.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
That's sad, but yeah.
Happy
Yeah.
Sabbath.
All right. See you at the main room.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.
If you're in heaven, you would think you would be going, no, no, Jesus, don't bring me back there. I'm in bliss already. Don't bring me back to this torturous world. And
Yeah.
you know, when he comes back to life, he probably would have said, Lord, why did you bring me back to this evil place where there's wickedness and torture? And I was up in heaven in bliss. Why bring me back? You know, and Jesus wouldn't put us through that kind of torture,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. That's right.
So if people know what's going on here, they're going to say, no, 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 I don't want to go back, you know?
Yeah.
Unless they're in hell, but, you know, and that's the other place they talk about. But,
Yeah.
you know, maybe then they might want to come back because it's supposed to be worse there. But we all know hell is death. It's not anything, you know, any place that you go to. But so, I mean, that's another strong argument. This whole passage of John 11
Mhm.
is a strong argument for that. Like he would be screaming, saying, "Why'd you bring me back?" There's no record of that, right? And he wouldn't
Exactly.
want to be back.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. You're absolutely right. Yeah, but we don't have any record of Lazarus saying anything about that kind of thing. So that gives more assurance that our death is like a sleep, and Jesus is the only one who can wake us up from this sleep. Thank you very much. So I think we're out of time, so we're going to finish with a closing prayer. Our dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this quarter's lesson that gave us so much understanding about the nature of that, about what Jesus is doing to bring us back to life. This week's lesson also gave us so much hope and encouragement to all of us. Oh Lord, I pray that all of us will walk with God, will cling to Jesus' promises, and to have faith and to believe in what Jesus has promised to each one of us, whether we receive the answer to our needs at this time or later in the future. Oh Lord, help us never lose faith in God, faith in Jesus Christ. Let us all wait patiently for your second coming, when the dead in Christ will rise immortal, and those who are alive will never die again. Thank you for your promises and the hope that you gave us. I pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.